Welcome back. Combating election fraud. Officials in Georgia's Floyd County discovering more than 2,600 ballots, netting nearly 800 additional votes for President Trump in the Peach State. The problem reportedly due to election officials neglecting to upload a memory card from a ballot scanning machine. This comes as Michigan rejects an appeal to void their election results ahead of today's expected certification. The Trump campaign faces a hearing this afternoon in Pennsylvania. They allege voters were held to a different standard depending on if they voted by mail or in person. Joining me right now is the former mayor of New York City, personal attorney for President Trump, Rudy Giuliani. Rudy, it's great to see you once again this morning. Thank you so much for being with me.
Very nice to be with you, Maria. Yes, we're going to argue the case in Pennsylvania today.
Go ahead. Yep, tell me about that.
I said we're going to argue the case in Pennsylvania today. It's really a preliminary motion. It's a motion to dismiss the case on technical legal grounds. That case is a case that, you know, it's connected to the other 8 or 9, and the case shows, and we're prepared to call witnesses to demonstrate that somewhere around 700,000 ballots were counted surreptitiously. They were counted in secret. The Republican watchers, which is what they're called in Pennsylvania, were literally kept in corrals. They were then locked out. Some of them were actually roughed up a little bit in the Philadelphia part, not the Pittsburgh part. But the total number now is, the exact number is 688,770. We'll probably get to 700,000 by the time we finish the hearing. That'll be on Thursday. But today is to really argue the legal part of the case. And frankly, this is a case that we would like to see get to the Supreme Court. So, you know, we're prepared in some of these cases to lose and to appeal and to get it to the Supreme Court. You might remember in Bush v. Gore, the Bush campaign lost in the state of Florida because it was a Democratic court, 5-2 if I recall correctly. So you're not going to win every one of these. I don't want to say it's because it's a Democrat judge or whatever. Some of them are just as fair as anybody. But in some cases, you win. In some cases, you lose. Most important thing is, this will be now our first established vehicle on our way to the Supreme Court. Or I should say exactly a second. The one in Michigan, even though the certification went ahead, that case is also another vehicle to go to the Supreme Court. So now we have 2. Shortly we'll have Wisconsin and soon Georgia. And then we'll have 3 more right after that. But the ones I just mentioned to you are already drafted and ready to go.
And what are you finding so far? What do you think went on here? Because when we spoke on Sunday, we talked about the software made by Smartmatic that was changing votes from Trump to Biden.
Yeah, but the core of the case, let's call it the meat of the case, and the one that's common really in 10 cities, of which we're probably going to sue in at least 8 or 9 of them, is that they stopped Republican watchers, inspectors, observers, they have different names in different states, to perform the actually vital function of observing the opening of the mail ballot. If you don't observe the opening of the mail ballot, it is lost forever, because the only thing that identifies it is a signature on the outer envelope. When you certify that signature, you separate the outer envelope from the ballot. The ballot's anonymous. You can never connect them again. So even if we go back and we find some of the signatures that are wrong or phony ones or whatever, we won't be able to link it to a ballot. So the only remedy the court has is to just cancel out those votes, which they've done in Pennsylvania in the Ross case. So Pennsylvania has, in fact, reversed an election based on absentee irregularities. There's no bigger absentee irregularity than failure to observe the ballot. Never happened before. I never remember, and I've been in absentee lawsuits, I never remember one side excluding the other and thinking they get away with it. It's totally absurd. People probably don't understand these ballot countings well enough to realize what a tremendous deprivation of rights this is. We have no idea if those 670,000 ballots were put in by Mickey Mouse or Biden's cousin or by a Democratic office holder or by some criminal who got paid money to produce 10,000. There are machines that can get you signatures on 100,000 ballots in a half hour. And that's possibly what happened in Michigan when they brought the 100,000 ballots in the middle of the night. This is a horrendous fraud. It spans the country. It is isolated to Democrat cities. They were very smart to do it in cities that, it's like the Old West, cities they control, where they control the workers. We have a worker testifying for us in Detroit that says she was taught by the city how to cheat. They control the workers. They control, to some extent, law enforcement. We had people being threatened if they got any closer with arrest, even though they had a court order. Corey Lewandowski was one of them. And they control, unfortunately, the courts. So we got to get up out of that into the Supreme Court realm.
Well, I mean, who's to stop this from happening again? I mean, if you've got Democrats in charge from here on out, they're in charge of the machines, you'll never see a Republican in the White House again. I mean, are you saying that this is systemic, that this was happening specifically in Democrat cities? And who was directing it, Rudy?
Well, somebody had to be directing it, and it wasn't happening in all Democrat cities. So, first of all, let me say to Democrats, you're just as good Americans, and you're just as honest and just as decent as any Republican or independent. It's not, you know, morality is not based on political party affiliation. Unfortunately, and this can happen to our party too, you have at the very top a bunch of crooks. I mean, you got to realize that by now. It began with Clinton, and he corrupted your party. He showed them a way to cheat. And the cheating, this cheating this year is on a grand scale. They picked 10 cities they can control. If they tried to do this in an honest Democratic city, they tell them to go stuff it. I mean, some of these ballots were hidden from the Democratic inspectors because they were so bad. They didn't allow a Democrat or a Republican to inspect it. Imagine that, a couple 100,000. So those must have been the one, you know, they bought from the mob or something. I'm kidding.
But Rudy.
Although there is an allegation of a mobster involved, but I think it's a far-fetched one. Right.
Okay, so you are a prosecutor. You were a prosecutor for years. You put the Gambino family in jail. I'm talking about mobs. You have to prove it. Can you prove this?
I can prove what I just told you. I can prove that there are 700,000 ballots in the state of Pennsylvania in 2 cities, or Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, that were put into the vote, and no Republican got to see it. They were deliberately excluded. It isn't an accident. It was done on purpose. We were being pushed away. Never happened before, ever. I don't remember ever anybody being excluded from a little absentee ballot count. This is an absentee ballot count that determined that very strange change in the state of Pennsylvania. We were at 800,000 votes here, Maria. The night we went to bed, as a professional politician, if I am, or been involved in it all my life one way or another and watching these things, we won the state of Pennsylvania. Legitimate networks would have called that for us in a prior era. I can go back and show you even 4 and 8 years ago where you call states that were much further off than that. 800,000 votes.
Unbelievable.
Now, how could we have been leading in 5? How could we be leading in all 5 of these states by big margins, and then this vote count that we can't watch turns the election against us? We're not being allowed to see the identifying data on these very strange ballots that took an 800,000 vote lead from us. So we are very, very concerned about this. We're not talking about Dominion now, which is a national security problem, a serious one, and it's getting worse.
All right, real quick before we go, 2 questions. Number 1, where is the Department of Justice? If this is happening, shouldn't the FBI or the DOJ be looking at this? Where is that? And secondly, do you feel you have enough evidence to overturn the results of this election?
I believe we have amassed more than enough evidence in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and Georgia. I believe we're very close in Nevada. Yesterday, we won a big victory in Nevada that nobody bothers to point out. The Clark County, which is Las Vegas, board, which is all Democrat, reversed an election of a Democrat in favor of a Republican based on the irregularities in Clark County voting. The irregularities they're talking about are the same. We were in the same election. It's the same irregularities, except we have more of them. So they got it reversed on our evidence. So somebody should take a good look at that.
Okay.
Unless they
We will
find
do
some
that.
strange distinction, they have to reverse ours.
Real quick, DOJ, where is it?
You tell me, Maria. I think
Okay.
they have seized some computers in Europe. That I do believe that. I hope.
Okay. Rudy Giuliani, thanks very much for the update. We'll keep following it. Thank you so